Welcome back to America Decides. President-elect Trump has sounded kind of cautious about the ongoing events in Syria, saying it's not the U.S. fight presently. Meanwhile, President Biden has sort of taken a mini victory lap, suggesting the fall of the Assad regime is a reflection of weakened Russian influence there as a result of U.S. and European support for Ukraine in that war with Russia. Meanwhile, Israel has carried out airstrikes in the country, did so overnight. It targeted Syrian military facilities that have long possessed chemical weapons and long-range missiles. Israeli troops also seized a border buffer zone for the first time in more than half century. Charlie Daggett joins us now from the Pentagon. Charlie, a lot has been going on. The Pentagon is clearly watching all of it. Catch us up on the most recent developments and how the Pentagon views this very up-for-grabs moment in the history of Syria.
Well, first of all, we have to remember there are 900 U.S. forces already in Syria, and they've been there for more than 10 years. But I'll get to that in just a minute, because you mentioned those Israeli airstrikes that have been happening over the past 48 hours, because that's significant. And I just wrote down some of the target lists. This comes from Israeli officials. Heavy weapons depots, air assets, naval assets, air defenses, chemical weapons facilities, cruise missiles, surface-to-air missiles, surface-to-sea missiles, fighter jets, helicopters. They're essentially obliterating all of what was left of the Syrian military so it doesn't fall into the hands of militants or the wrong people. Now, in terms of whether or not America is going to be involved, America is already involved. I mentioned the 900 forces there. A few days ago, CENTCOM, that's the region, Central Command, that controls that area, called in one of the largest wave of airstrikes that we've seen in months inside Syria, striking potential ISIS targets, camps and hideouts. But we're talking about 75 strikes, and we use B-52s, F-15s, A-10 aircraft. So the United States is very much involved. What we don't know yet is there are so many moving parts there. You have U.S.-backed Kurdish Syrian Defense Forces. They're the Kurds. And then you've got this new militant, not new militant group, this militant group that is now ostensibly in charge of running Syria. That's what we don't know yet.
And, Charlie, you know the region well. You can see it on the map there, ladies and gentlemen. Syria geographically is enormously important to the fate of Jordan. It's enormously important to the fate of Iraq. The Turks have tremendous interest. The Saudis are interested parties. The Russians have an air base there and a warm water port there. Everyone has interest there, which means the United States, of course, has interest there. And when the Israelis and the United States are conducting airstrikes at the same time, you know that there is tremendous, not just tangential, but ongoing interest in the fate of Syria.
Yeah, everything goes to Syria or through Syria. You know, the Israelis even claim some victory to the downfall of Bashar al-Assad's regime, because they essentially argue that they got rid of Hezbollah. Hezbollah was a very powerful group inside Syria working on behalf of the regime. Iran was propping up the regime. Russia, as you mentioned, was propping up the regime. They turned tail. What is stunning is how quickly this happened. You know, this happened in less than 2 weeks. The Turks are involved as well. The United States is involved and will continue to be involved for some time because it's just too critical. There are sort of bad neighbors all over that area, and everything goes through Syria. It's a reason. I mean, the United States has a base in Syria, Al-Tanf. You know, the American forces have been there for more than 10 years, ostensibly an anti-ISIS, but in recent months they've been going after Iranian-backed militias who have been attacking U.S. troops or attempting to attack U.S. troops. So, you know, Syria is critical. You can't ignore that or let it fall into the wrong hands. Remember, it was in all of this chaos that ISIS was born between Iraq and Syria, and they don't want to see that happen again.
Indeed. Charlie Daggett at the Pentagon, thank you very much.